I'd like to welcome everyone here first thing, and especially our visitors with us here tonight, and our speaker, which will be introduced here a little later on. We want to get started here right away, and I'll ask that you stand. This will be the only time we have to stand, because we're going to have a pledge of allegiance. We'll first have the invocation by Brother Watson here. He'll give that, and then we've got one of our Boy Scouts here will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll sit back down and get started here.
Let's pray. Dear Lord, I'm so glad we can be together and talk about our history. Because if we do not remember from where we came, we do not know where we're going. Help us to appreciate our history in these red Georgia hills, and to be able to share together and be grateful for who we are as citizens of the United States of America. For we pray it in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you see, please. I think I can probably talk without the microphone here, and I know our preacher fellow here can. He's used to that. So, just a couple of things here in the way of announcements here. We're going to have, this is our annual meeting night. We're going to make it real short. But in way of announcement, I would like to mention that this organization, we invite members into it, and there's no qualification to being a member, and just come be with us. And we'd like to get a little donation. We don't charge any dues or anything, but we have a donation, any amount, don't make any difference, just once a year. If our members make a little donation, and we're really going to have to, look like this year, have a kind of drive to raise some money here. Maybe have to call home preacher here to help us with that. They're good at that. But we do have some expenses coming up. We've got to do a bit of work on the website, and one or two other things that will require some money. We may just have a fundraising thing to do that. But anyway, the forms are out there that you can join. We got those out there on the table, and some receipt envelopes in case anyone would like to make their donation for this year. It's good to go and make it kind of first of the year, and then that helps us survive here. Want to mention that also, some of you may have remembered the meeting we had back August 8th last year, where we did all this work about the old model football team. That turned out real good. We did have about 300-400 people at that meeting. That's the best attendance we ever had at the meeting. And there's some videos of that. I went by the school and picked them up today, and we got some out there on the table. If you didn't get one, would like to have one, there's two out there. One has 2 discs, and the other has 1 disc. And the 1 disc is $5, and the 2 disc one is $10, and that money goes to the school. So we'll just give that to them. But I think if you don't have one, you probably might want one of those. We're going to have our Memorial Day again this year. Billy Brown, who we've had for the last 3 years, will be back again this year, and I think the committee on Billy just decided to just keep on getting him to come as long as he can, because he was here in 1946 when that monument was dedicated. He was here as a 2nd Class Boy Scout, and Bill 30 was participating in it back then. They're still doing it today. And that was one of them that just led us in, or two of them just led us in the Pledge of Allegiance there. And Max here, he's our vice president, he's head of that troop, scoutmaster. And so Billy Brown will be back on Memorial Day. That fence at 12 noon every year is one of the best attended Memorial Day observation, I think, anywhere around. We'll have our quarterly meetings. We're going to have one April the 9th, August the 13th, and August the 8th. We'll be having those meetings. And our website, you can just log into the website. We already got those meetings up on there. We haven't decided what they'll be yet. Any of you got any ideas for a good program, let us know. And okay, now we're going to get into a business session here. So I now call the business session to order of the annual meeting. I'll start off here calling for a motion. We usually our reports. The first thing we have reports from the treasurer, secretary, the president, and the Memorial Day committee chairman. And I'm going to accept the motion that those reports just be turned in as written. And we've already got some of them out there on the table, and you can pick one up as you leave here tonight if you want to really see what you're voting on. We're going to do this like the Democrats. You got to vote on it before you can read it. So, anyway, so I will accept a motion that we not read these reports tonight and just have them available. They'll be put in the records and all, but we have some out there if people want to look at it.
Motion.
So moved, okay?
Second.
Got a second. Okay, those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Okay, all right, now, the next thing we gotta have, and it takes a membership vote on this, and membership quorum is just how many we've got here on membership, so we can vote on it with a small crowd. But we want a little revision in the bylaws, and I will present this as chairman of the bylaws committee. But what we want to do here, we want to amend the bylaws to where we don't have to have a full meeting, because you can see we don't have much luck getting everybody out, and so the executive committee does most everything for this organization, except the executive committee does. It's just a committee. It makes recommendations. It can't carry out things that the board of trustees can. And so in this revision here, Article 5 on trustees, Section 2, we would change the number of trustees from a minimum of 15, no more than 30, and that would be changed to 9 trustees. Just 9 trustees, no more, no less. And then in Section 2, well, that's the same one. That Section 2 is the one that would change to 9. And then we need to have a small change in Section 3, where it says that a meeting can be called of trustees at any membership meeting, and we want to add at any executive meeting to that too. So when we have an executive meeting, we'll be able to call a trustee meeting, and the quorum of the majority of 9, so, and being as everybody is, has to be a trustee to be on the executive committee, then anytime if we have an executive committee, if we got as many as 5 members executive committee, we've got our quorum for doing trustee too. So we got a lot of work coming up that's gonna take several meetings about what we're gonna do with all this memorabilia and where we're gonna put it and those kind of things. And, we just need to have for this executive committee, which I have to commend them. These people on this executive committee is what keeps this organization going. So, that's what we're doing with these bylaw changes here. I have copies of these out there, so you can pick those up when you leave too. So, I will accept the motion for this, bylaws change. Anyone like to make a move? Johnny? Okay, do I have here a second? Monkey? Okay. Oh, let me mention one other thing at this point. Is anybody here, are you, keeping kind of little minutes for us here? Good. We don't have a secretary, by the way. We're gonna see if we can elect one. I don't know where we have to look. Okay. All right, we got a motion and a second. Do we have any comments or any further say so about it? There being none, I'll call the question. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. All right, now, executive committee, we can go to work and do everything we need to do now, I think. Okay. We don't have a secretary. Last annual meeting, we couldn't elect a secretary. I don't know if we could elect one this year, but we're supposed to have one because we have to list the secretary with the Secretary of State each year when we turn in our thing to keep our charter. So, anybody want to nominate someone for secretary?
Well, we've got one here.
She's the acting one, Johnny.
The act, well, you make it change.
That means she can't become the real one.
The pay will stay the same.
Well, I can do it.
Okay, well, if she says she can do it, I guess Johnny won't nominate her.
I certainly will.
I get a second.
Second.
Leon second it. And we got us a secretary. I'm sure proud of that. Yeah, 'cause I started looking up some of last year's business, couldn't find it all. But, Jennifer's one of these people that I was just talking about. Keeps this organization going. Jennifer, I don't know where we'd be without her. Any other business?
One thing. As far as the Memorial Committee, if you've never been on it, the Memorial Day Ceremony Committee, we'd love to have you. All you need to do is just contact Jack or me, and we'll love to get you on it. And it's one of our biggest events, but we sure could use more people.
And what day is that?
Memorial Day.
The 25th, 27th, 26th, what day?
I'd actually have to look it up. I
Yeah.
think it's the 29th.
Not that, it's nice to know.
Yep.
It'd be good.
One of our things is that holds us back.
Last Monday in May.
It is the last Monday in May, and that would be the 28th.
Okay.
The 28th.
This year.
And toward the middle of February, we're gonna try to set up a meeting of the committee to try to get together what we need to get together.
Okay, well, that's Memorial Day thing. It's really turned into a good thing. And we do have, as far as we know, we made this claim 15 years ago, I guess, or so, before we first made this claim, that we had the first one in this nation. And if anybody come up with one in the meantime, we relinquished that claim. So far they haven't. And now I'm gonna say we got the first one and the second. The second was the one down at school. There's only 5 or 6 months between the two of them when they were put in 1946 and 1947 on one school. So, come out and help us if you can, cause, it takes a little work there to get that Memorial Day thing done. Okay,
And excuse
I'm
me.
going to, I didn't turn that thing off.
Yes, yes. Jack, there's one quick thing. If you know anybody that is servicemen, either veterans or currently serving, that would be able to be there that day, that would be a tremendous help, because that's always something that's hard to find anybody that's either in uniform or the uniform still fits, or active duty. So if you know anybody, that's definitely one of the top things we'd be looking for.
We always try to have one of each of the 4 branches of service there. And, I don't believe that includes the Coast Guard. We give Coast Guard.
We'll take a Coast Guard.
Yeah, we have 5 of them, but we go with 4 because we had 4 in 1946, and we just, out of tradition, we do it that way. And, okay, is there any other business? Okay, business session of the annual meeting of 1917 is over. And, I'm not going to introduce the speaker tonight because I just met him as he came in the door back there. And I've already got someone else that's going to introduce him. And I'm going to introduce them. And I'm going to go back in history a little in doing it. That's what we're about, history. And I'm not no scholar of history. I haven't studied it and all that. But the reason I'm so interested in it, that I have become history. And so I am history. Anyway, but I enjoy it. And I'm going to introduce Wendy Fincher Robert here tonight to introduce our speaker, because the speaker lives right across the road from the Finchers over here on the Wayside Road. That's all I'm going to say, and then you go take from there. But I've known the Finchers for a while, and it goes back when I was just a kid, and Judy and Louie Kears were kids. This is Louie here with us tonight. And in fact, I think we're the same age, right close. And so they were in the Methodist church, and I was in the Rush Chapel church. And those 2 churches on the same church. In other words, the same preacher preached at both of them. Way back there, I used to preach at Rush Chapel one Sunday and Elizabeth the next. And then later on, we got preaching at one at 10 o'clock, I guess it was, and the other at 11 o'clock. But anyway, I got to kind of knowing people over there. The main thing, my grandmother called that Kears Sabbath. A lot of Kearses lived over there. And we always looked forward to going over there because those people could cook just as good as we could over here on this side. And so we'd have these quarterly meetings and eating on the ground, or cold weather would be in the building. But anyway, I got kind of knowing them somewhat then. And then later on, and after Wendy came along, she was actually our secretary over at Dixie Company at one time. So I got knowing her there, and Wendell, her daddy, he was over at the airport. When I used to have an airport rented over, I had all the land rented to cut hay over there on. Bill Schwartz had the airplane shop and everything. Eastern Airline was coming in over there on going on a one-way trip. You could fly out there on the Eastern, but you couldn't come back. And Wendell was the ticket agent over there, and worked at Eastern at that time. But going back before that, I was cutting wheat up in Montana. And off up there, and we would eat with the boss man's wife. She was a good cook. And that's the reason I worked at that outfit, because it's good eating. And so we were in there one day, and Miss Coates, she had this magazine, and, of course, it wasn't anybody, Lee Jarrett was with him. Lee and I were from Georgia, it wasn't, we don't speak from Georgia, in Montana, I guess, that time. And, Miss Coates, she says, here's some Georgia people in this magazine here. Says, you better look at it, says, that's pretty girls. And she handed us this Ladies Home Journal magazine. And it was Judy and Louie Kirsch. And I said, yeah, I know them go to church with me. You're one of them Montana, you know, and this, sometimes the world gets small. But then, you know, later on, we had workforce and all, and then, so we wanted to try to do something here today that will bring in the area over there, what Grandma called Pierce Community, over toward Johnson School and all. And we realized we hadn't done anything much over there historically and all, and so got thinking Morrison Campground is the oldest thing, I reckon, in that community over there. They're celebrating their 150th anniversary this year at the camp meeting later on this summer. They'll be celebrating 150 years over there. And so I called up Louie, and I told her what I was wanting to do, to get somebody over here that could speak to us. She said, I've got the real person, and that's the one that Wendy will introduce now to do that. But I probably spent more time than I should here, but I just wanted y'all to know about the features and how we're all kind of tied together, and we all drink from the same trough sometimes. And so with that, Wendy, if you want to come up here and introduce your man here.
And Wendy, your last name is Robert?
Robert.
Okay.
No, yes.
Okay, I get the job of introducing Gil, which is, he's Gil to me, Dr. Watson. But a dear, dear cousin of mine. I told him he had to write some notes, though. I've known him my whole life, but I needed something to say to introduce. He was born in Atlanta in 1946. His great-grandmother is Emmy Kearse McClellan from the Wayside Road. Grew up over on the Wayside Road, just in the area where we all live now. He was educated at Oglethorpe University in Atlanta, then got his master's degree from Emory Candler School of Theology, and his doctorate from the University of Chicago's McCormick's Theological Seminary. He's had quite a few churches in his preaching career, 49 years in the North Georgia Conference. He was at Bethel United Methodist Church in Hiram, Lithonia First United Methodist Church, St. John's in Atlanta, the First United Methodist Church in LaGrange, Oak Grove Methodist Church in Decatur, and in the last 23 years, he retired this past June, but the last 23 years he's been at Northside United Methodist Church in Atlanta. So those are a lot of facts. I guess what I can add is he's a really, really good guy, and he knows a whole lot about a whole lot of stuff. But he loves history, so I know it's going to be an interesting talk and informative. So,
Thank you.
It's always nice to be introduced by somebody who is prejudiced in your behalf. But I have remember the day when she was born, and I have always looked on Ludi and Judy as my sisters, because we're just a few years apart in age. And my mother was as crazy about them as she could have been any daughters. So we had a wonderful time growing up together up here, and that's why when I retired in Atlanta, I wanted to come back to where Granny had grown up on the Wayside Road and have a home there. When I was the pastor in LaGrange, I moved a house that was built in 1852 up on the Wayside Road, and that's the house I live in now. And then I bought the log cabin that was at the Wren's Nest in Atlanta, the home of Joel Chandler Harris, and it's my kitchen, my log kitchen, as though it were a plantation in the 1850 era. A few years later, I started a garden and flowers and things that would have been grown in 1850, and I've become a fanatic, pure and simple. And I love Floyd County, so I have great love for this place. Gone through here, of course, and because Mizpah and Rush were tied together, I've been through here lots of times, and I appreciate this Shannon part of our county together. Now, older than Morrison's was Mizpah, which was 1856. When was Rush, child?
1836.
1836, 20 years before Mizpah. So the oldest,
No, 1838.
1830, well, I would say y'all are a little older on this end. So, and I know the Waters house down here was the inn and the stagecoach route that connected. We were in the middle of nowhere. I've always thought when our great-great-great-grandfather came here in 1852 and settled, why in the world, with all the fertile land on fertile rivers, on fertile creeks, would we get all those rocks on the wayside road? And I said at one point in time I was going to see if I couldn't get a government dispensation for growing rocks. And I was going to say when they came out to review it, and they said, how do you know they're growing? And I said, how do you know they're not? It takes a long time to grow a rock. And I've got them piled up all over my yard. Every time I went to plow anything up or dig anything up, I've hit rock. And I have wondered why my forebears didn't somehow settle on the Etowah River instead of that hill. But that hill is special to all of us over there on the Wayside Road, and I love it. I also love Morrison's Campground. Now, Morrison's Campground has an interesting story because it comes in the wake of the war between the states. War between the states was over in 1865, but our Georgia, and especially this part of Georgia, had been ravaged by Yankees. Now, if y'all are Yankees and sitting here, you can just go ahead and sit or you can leave. It's all right with me either way. But I grew up not liking Yankees very much. And I remember my granny, Emmy Kearse McClellan, sitting on the front porch of what had been their original home place, which was John Kearse's house. And a reporter from New York was there. He was making pictures of the Johnson's house and the Higginbotham house on the other side of Kingston Highway. And he wanted to know about old houses, and he was talking in his wonderful New York accent. And Granny was rocking in a rocking chair. And she had answered some of his questions, and he said, now you're very southern, aren't you? She said, yes, sir, I am. My Granny had to be 80 at that point in time. He said, well, ma'am, now I was a little boy, I don't know how old, but I was a little boy. He said, well, ma'am, if you couldn't be southern, what would you want to be? And she said, dead. And that ended it right there. He didn't know what to say back. I don't know what he thought her answer was going to be, but it was not what he expected. 1868 was a difficult time in North Georgia. The war had left, I'm sure folks in Shannon and the same place as our folks over between the Kingston Highway and here, ravaged. Foraging groups for the army camp that was camped at Barnsley Gardens came through, and at our house, I don't know about anybody else's house, I don't know about ours, at ours, they came in on a breakfast time, took the breakfast off the table, and our youngest Kearse daughter at that time, Rosie, later Rosie McLean, was eating in a high chair, and they just jerked the food off the table, took it out, and they stood at the back door and poured the syrup, sorghum syrup, on the ground. And her exclamation has lived in our family is saying, Mom, look, these damn Yankees is even pouring out the syrup. So we don't have great affinity for those folks, but it's all right. We're all one union now, and we'll try to make the best of it. In 1868, it was a real difficult time. If you remember, Ulysses S. Grant was the President of the United States. He would not even be elected until after Camp Meeting of 1868. And Camp Meeting was, ours at Morrison's was actually a later one. The earlier ones were in the 1830s. And the first ones were in the Presbyterian churches. It had become a way of getting to know people and hear the gospel of Jesus Christ and hear it preached outdoors in a way that allowed people to come and gather after laying by time and after it was not so hot. So September was the first camp meeting. And the churches who got together for that first camp meeting to ask for a little piece of property, which they rented over on the Kingston Highway, or Kingston Methodist Church, south. North Rome Methodist Church, south. Mizpah Rush Charge Methodist Church, south. And Pope's Chapel. Does anybody know what Pope's Chapel is or was? Thank you. I do not know, so I wish you'd tell me after here. Where is it?
It's the Usanala Church over here on the Bellsbury Road on the Valley Farm Road. That was Pope's Chapel.
This is the Ustanala Church. All right, so that's its name now, Ustanala, and it still exists as a Methodist church.
We just came from, I guess.
Okay.
Very much exists. And I've got.
That's why I didn't know it's. That's why I didn't know its
Those
name.
benches out of made out of 4 pieces of wood. The old hard pine, 18 inches,
Yeah.
bottom and ends and back. And so that church has been around.
Well, it's got to be around from that time frame.
1940s, 50s, like that.
Mhm.
Going to Troutman that made the Texas state flag deeded that property. We have her signature on the deed, but that's another story. But yes, it
Yes,
does.
thank you very much. That was the one piece I didn't know, because I did not know Pope's Chapel as Ustanala.
Well, her name was Joanna Troutman Pope.
Mm-hmm. And that's how it got to be Pope's Chapel.
Pope's family farm, and it was deeded over. And we have her signature, his signature on the deed to that property. And so it's been a continuous usage.
Great.
for-
That's wonderful. Hopefully, maybe we can pull all of us back together, because we've gotten apart, for this our 150th year, because in the days past, preachers from those churches were the preachers who preached the camp meeting. And the first camp meeting was held under a brush arbor. You know what a brush arbor is? Basically just a framework with tree limbs, pine, not tree limbs, across it with enough to keep the sun out, and that's about all. That was 1868. And at that time, and at those meetings, a man named Mr. E.R. Morrison attended the meetings in 68 and 69. And afterwards said that he had believed and felt like God was telling him to do something for the community. And so his house that had existed before the war between the states was right on the place where the arbor of Morrison's Campground now sits. He gave his house and 4 acres, but before he could sign the deeds, he died. His son, Mr. A.C. Morrison, honored his father's wishes, and then the 4 acres that was the initial arbor was just the arbor. Later, from the Skinner family, the trustees bought an additional 13 acres, and now we've expanded a couple of times and bought a little more acreage around. But there's a bottomland where a creek runs through, and it's the creek that is at the Morrison's Campground Spring. Comes running and then flows on to B. Dykes Creek, and there you have it. Down there in that bottom, where it was mole level and in between the trees, they decided they would camp at camp meeting. And in the 1870s, and 70 itself, was the first tented camp meeting. And that's when they realized they had to expand in order to be able to cook, to keep livestock, and to be able to stay alive. Now, milk had to be kept in the spring and marked, watermelons with the initials of the family carved into them, and the cow tied out behind the tents, along with crates with chickens in them, for fried chicken on Sunday. And if you will come to the first Sunday of camp meeting this year, we're going to have a dinner on the ground. We're going to furnish the fried chicken if you'll furnish the rest. And I hear the Shannon folks are good cooks, so we'll just put that up and see if it's Mitzvah or if it's Rush. We can do better, Jack. We're trying to do things to recreate a part of our heritage and our history. A lot of folks came in covered wagons in those first years. And then after 1874, the little shacks that we call tents first were erected. Now there were no kitchens and there were no bathrooms, remember? And there was no running water. Water had to be carried from the creek. Later, the spring itself was in fact piped, and the water that served the campground came from that spring. And that was the water we used to take our showers. There were no hot water heaters. You took very quick showers. Very quick showers. But those were all much later additions. The arbor existed after it was built until 1886. And I assume many of the old timbers of Mr. Morrison's house were reused to build that first arbor, because his home would have been a good home. It would have been made by the best heart pine stuff, I'm sure. And I'm sure those first framework pieces, other than those cut to make it, were what we used. But the snow of 1886 lay so heavily on the arbor that it caved it in, and it was on the ground. However, they got it back up and a new arbor built in time for camp meeting. And it was that building that stayed there until the 1960s, when it was rebuilt using some better timbers that were rotting. I remember sitting by the rotting ones over years past, laying in the straw. We had shavings, we had straw. Later we added kitchens and those wonderful old wood stoves I split the wood for. Now, I can remember I grew up in Atlanta. I didn't grow up in Floyd County, and as far as having to cut stove wood for the winter. So it was fun for me as a child to think that was something to do. And I stayed with Ludy and Judy and Ann, and my mother did. And we tended in their tent until I was a teenager, and we bought our own tent. And since that time, and for my children and my grandchildren, we have our own tent down there in memory of my mother, who loved camp meeting. Came all of her life for her years of time together, 87, and I have been all of mine, 71, and Ludy, we just won't add a number to yours, and I don't have 77, but we all were brought in as babies. We were brought as babies, put in the straw, and stayed out there, and were together. Now those first trustees, I don't know these folks. You may know them. I do not know them, not being from here. Miles Reese, there were 5 names of the original trustees. J.W. Gilliam, or that could be Jillian. T.J. Glenn, Mr. Glenn I knew because his daughter was Minnie Glenn, and she was my granny's best friend. So that's how I know that name. William Mathis and J.L. Wright. Those were the first 5 trustees in 1868 when the camp meeting began. In 1904, the entire east side of the campground caught fire in November and burned to the ground, all of the cabins. We call them cabins now, that sounds a little more sophisticated. Tents of what we, among the tent holders, call them. They were rebuilt, all of them, in time for camp meeting, which at that time had been moved to August. It wasn't because of the heat, it was the school system that moved us. And we moved in, you know how hot it was in August. And then we moved again because of the school system, and now we meet in July. So that this year, our 10 days begins July the 12th, 13th, July the 13th, and runs through the 22nd of the Battle of Atlanta. It really wasn't a battle, but that's the date anyway. That week will be our 150th camp meeting, though all of the years not on that very site. We have Mr. Morrison to be grateful for his giving us the property and the successive generations of folks who have preserved our history and put it together. As I said, initially the first preachers were those preachers of these churches that formed that camp meeting, Rush Chapel, one of them. And then it became this inviting preachers to come and stay and building a preacher's tent in which they could stay. Inviting them, one preach in the morning, one preach in the evening, one at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Lord, can you imagine going to 3 o'clock service? Neither could we. And while Ludi and I had to endure it most of our lives, by the time we had children and grandchildren, we got rid of the 3 o'clock service because nobody was awake anyway. You had a big dinner at 12 noon, and it was over about 1 or 1:30. And then you had the bell ring for service at 3. Oh, friends, that was not a welcome sound at 3 o'clock, let me tell you. And we had wonderful meals. My mother, and the picture in the paper of the Ladies' Home Journal is my mother serving the table at Uncle Nolan's and Ludi and Judy and Ann's tent. And Mother every year brought our good china and our good silver from Atlanta to serve the preachers. Now, if we get a paper plate, we're doing real well. Because most people would rather give money for us to go out to eat than to pay the money to cook a meal to have the preachers in the tent. It's amazing how things have changed. And it used to be wonderful to invite the preacher home, and now if the preacher came home with you, you'd have a heart attack. As sure as the world, dead right in the floor. Or if he were to say, I think I'll go have dinner with you today after church. Whoa, look out, Longhorns, here we come. Our heritage in this county is very, very important. And all of our history together, because we are all a part of this county. Whether we came in as interlopers or we were here from the very beginning of the county, we were all a part of every part of history that has made this county. World War II were sparse years at the campground because of the men in service. Same with World War I. World War II more so because so many of the girls, my mother included, dated boys whom they had met at camp meeting and who'd gone off to war. Some came back, and some were buried in your cemetery and in the Mizpah Cemetery and at Myrtle Hill. But all of us together do that thing that is called history and living it. The important thing is somehow to make our children want to remember it and to live it too. So I hope you will help us as we celebrate 150 years at Morrison's under the arbor. We think we're going to move our services in the evening to 7:30, give us a little more time. Therefore, if the preacher preaches longer, it won't seem so long if it ends at 9. We have it now from 8, and if it ends at 9:15, or 9:30, we think we are just dead with having to listen to that fellow. So we're trying to relieve ourselves of preacher exhaustion. May I answer any questions for you? Yes, sir.
Give us a little sample of Bird Rabbit.
That's my other hobby. Now it's politically incorrect, Jack. I can't do that. But I wish you could help me. You could have a private showing. This is on film. And I don't need to be on the news. But you invite me and don't tape it, and I'll tell the story. But I do love Uncle Remus. I do love the stories. And I'm the only person in Georgia that's ever been given the permission by the family to tell the stories of Uncle Remus. That's the way, one of the ways I preserve my history. And I have loved Brer Rabbit and Brer Bat and all those other critters in our Georgia forest.
So So your father was from Atlanta?
No, my father was from Bremen. My mother was born in Atlanta, and she met him on the same street I grew up on in Atlanta, that she grew up on in Atlanta. And my granny, my great-grandmother, was formerly Kirsten, married to McClellan, and came to Atlanta in 1897.
Okay, what street was that?
Bankhead Highway.
Okay. I'm from
And-
Cape.
All right, well, we grew up in Grove Park. I like to say Old Grove Park. You'll understand the reason. But my mother used to say that. Her great-grandfather on another side, her grandfather on the other side was Henry Hubbard, who along with Mr. Grove and Mr. Shreves, the Hubbard Shreves and Grove Realty Company founded Grove Park. And it's the same Mr. Grove who founded Grove Park in Ashland. He intended to do that in Georgia first, but the Depression came. Any other questions? Then I think you mentioned the fundraiser. If the ushers would come forward for the offering. Thank you.
Just a second here, I got something for you. If I can find that tape I was telling you about, that's yours.
Thank you.
And
I appreciate that.
anybody else wants those, get them back there in the back. One thing I forgot to mention, that lady's home journal that I saw out there in 1960, and you figure out how many years ago. Here it is right here, that's the first time I've seen it in that many years. And Louis brought some very interesting looking books here with a lot of history and all in them. And you get a chance, you may want to look at that here. Before you leave, again, those reports are in the back there. If you want to pick them up, take them home with you, and you can read over them then. And if there's nothing else that anybody wants to say or do here before we leave,
I'm just gonna say, if you have not seen our website, I hope you'll visit it. We have a lot of good stories on there, we have our meetings, but we have pictures. Some pictures we can't identify, some of these people in the Civil War, you might know some of them. But anyway, it's watersdistrictcouncil.org. Lots of history on there. The old mill that is at Berry now was here at Hermitage. We've got that picture. So,
okay. And I was thinking there about Morrison Campground. My grandmother grew up Eastern Hill, and she said they went to Morrison Campground when she was a kid, which that'd be around 130 years ago. So it wasn't very old back then. And you mentioned the cow, they carried their cow with them all the way to Eastern Hill. Anything else? Anybody want to get into this history? Well, some of you may want to get home and watch the State of the Union speech tonight. I think maybe that's where everybody stayed. They must like Trump so much that they didn't want this with us tonight.
I figured the word got out that I was coming.
Well, you sure have been interesting to us, and that's what we're about, this history, and you mentioned the heritage and all, and we that's our slogan on our letterhead and all. Can't remember exactly what it says to you, Jennifer, but about we can't remember our heritage. No, without a heritage, you have no future. Nothing like that, I think's our slogan. But that's what we're about. We sound like what you're about. So I look forward to spending some more time with you. And now that I met you, and there's a lot of things in history that we need to find out more about. And our website that Jennifer's talking about, We put all this stuff on that website. Now, this meeting, Wayne's been videoing it back there. Now, it'll be on our website here pretty soon. And, so that's what we're trying to do, is get everything digitized. Once you get that done, you get it on the web and in the cloud and all, then you've got it preserved. We got that opportunity now, used to not have. And, so whether we have big gatherings here and all, what's most important is to preserve this history and to preserve our heritage. And the way to do that is, the modern day way is the way to do it, and that's to do it through, digitized internet now. Anything else? Sure appreciate everyone coming out tonight that's here, and, y'all, have a safe trip home. Go home and see what Mr. Trump has to say tonight. President Trump.